I paid a modern master to improve my art, and here are some of the key takeaways from that 2-month mentorship. And thank God there are key takeaways, because the boy spent way more money than he intended. Well, I knew what I was paying, but also I'm not rich, so it was quite expensive. So thank God it was all worth it in the end. Lesson number 1 is art isn't separate from other parts of life. Now, this might not seem art related, but it is the most art related. I'm realizing that I was dividing my art life, my creative life, away from the other parts of my life. But really, your art is impacted by everything that you do throughout your day. All your interests, everything you are, everything you can experience impacts the art, because the art isn't this separate thing that you do, completely isolated from all the other aspects of your life. It can be tempting to think that your creative experience, your creative energy is isolated only into the art practice, but the reality is that you have access to that creative energy in all aspects of life. It's not a separate thing. It's not something that's isolated out, which means that the flow and energy that you experience while drawing, you can have that flow and experience in any moment in your life. And this is kind of mind-blowing to me, even though I understood this intellectually before. During this mentorship, I really tapped into this idea and realized that the creative energy I have while dancing, while listening to music, while going out for a walk, it's all the same thing, and that drawing isn't so different from those things, which means that the lessons that apply to art apply to those aspects of life, and those aspects of life, those lessons that I learned within dancing, for example, also apply to art, and it's really not that different. It's all kind of the same thing. It's all the same lived experience. You're tapping into the same creative energy, which means that you can practice this tapping into this energy in all these other aspects of life, and it will improve your art. I used to think that improving your art really meant just drawing, like you could only improve your art through drawing because that is the skill that you're developing. But I'm realizing more and more that tapping into that energy, that underlying creative energy, is a skill in itself, and you can practice that skill in other aspects of life. So now I've been starting to do that more and more, where I structure my day in a way that allows me to tap into that flow as much as possible, and that helps me improve my art even when I'm not drawing. And that's been amazing. Honestly, such a great lesson. Blew my mind a little bit at first, but honestly, it's been great. I'm so happy about this. It's a lesson that feels super profound to me, and maybe it sounds obvious to you, but it is magical once you actually apply it to your life, rather than just thinking of it as this intellectual lesson. If you really apply it as a practical tip, then you'll see how profound this truly can be. So that's lesson number 1. Lesson number 2 is to pay close attention to the whispers of the muse. So when you are tapping into this creative flow, the whispers of the muse are not very loud, which is why they're whispers, right? They are very, very quiet. They're small inclinations, and you need to pay attention to those whispers to really find that creative output. If you are waiting for these big ideas that will hit you over the head, then I think you miss out on a lot of creative ideas and a lot of drawings that could be way more interesting than those big ideas. If you're not paying close attention to those smaller ideas, those smaller inclinations, then it's way harder to feel energized by the art, because those big ideas don't come out that often. This is especially important if you want to use an intuitive approach to your drawing, which is the way that I work. And I did understand this idea and was applying it before this mentorship, but I do think that I've realized and been confronted with the importance of this through these past 2 months, and it's been helping me a ton, where I'm realizing that I just need to be so tuned in to those whispers to truly let the art flow naturally. And as soon as I pay close attention to those whispers, the art just flows so easily. Making art can be so easy once you get used to this listening skill, this paying close attention to what your gut instincts are telling you. And if you tune into this and develop this skill, what you will find is that you become way more prolific in your drawings. They come out way faster, they feel easy, and everything just flows so much more naturally than when you're trying to construct everything intellectually. Those small whispers is truly where the best ideas come out of. It's truly why so many of the times where I've come out with good drawings are times when I'm not even really trying. It's really when I'm relaxed that my best drawings come out, and it's because when I'm relaxed, I'm way more inclined to listen to those whispers. So if you are looking for a way to make drawing much easier for yourself, I would highly recommend that you pay closer attention to those whispers, which means that you have to spend more time in silence when drawing, or at least try not to be as distracted. Now, I'm not saying that you need to be paying 100% attention all the time, but once in a while, just try to do a silent drawing session and see what happens, see what comes out. Now, the challenge with doing a silent drawing session is that a lot of those negative critical voices will also come to the surface, and you will have to learn to grapple with those more negative voices. But as you learn to grapple with those negative voices, you will also hear these small whispers, these small inclinations that will help your art just flow so much more naturally, and the whole thing will become so much easier. Trust me, give it a shot. And if you do want to explore more intuitive drawing, if intuitive drawing is interesting to you, I do have a mindful drawing course I will mention at the end. It will be linked below. But obviously, just try this on your own. Try to do a couple of silent drawing sessions and pay close attention to the whispers of the muse. Lesson number 3 is that you can truly draw anything. You can make anything. Now, this sounds obvious. Clearly, well, obviously, you can draw whatever you want. There's no stakes. There's no real reason why you need to draw anything specific. But honestly, this is kind of mind-blowing when you apply it. I do think that most of us have this ideal in our mind about what we need to be making, and eventually that becomes this very constrained box that we're trying to fit our creativity within. And that just limits all the expression that is possible for us. Now, it's hard to truly take this lesson to heart. I do find it very difficult to remember that I can draw anything. Like if I just want to draw a couple of boxes and just that can be the whole drawing, I keep forgetting that that is a possibility because I'm constantly comparing myself to the artist that I want to emulate. And therefore I tend to create a very narrow view of what art can be. Now, one way you can fix this, and one way that I've been working on this, is that I try to consume a larger variety of art instead of just the very narrow slice of art that I tend to look towards, right? So many of you, for example, might look at a lot of anime art or like specific type of character designs or very specific type of landscapes. Try to expand your understanding of the art that is possible for you and like explore different things so that you can truly find what is natural for you. You might have an assumption about the art that you should be making, but then when you explore something new, something different, you might realize that like actually this path feels way easier. I have a knack for this way of working, and then that becomes your new style. Or maybe you explore a side tangent, a different style, and then you realize like, hey, actually I can pull this part of this style and add it to the way that I like to work, right? So for example, maybe you explore patterns and abstraction and you realize like, hey, these patterns and abstraction are quite fun, and I usually just draw characters, but now let me pull these patterning and this abstraction into my character designs and maybe add it to the clothing. And you know, there's so many different things that you can explore, and if you keep your vision of what is possible for you very narrow, it becomes very difficult to realize all the different things that is possible for you. So try to consume art that is broader than what you're currently consuming and really try to explore. But at the same time, also lean into the things that you enjoy. So if you try to explore other things and you realize that, hey, these things aren't that interesting to me, then feel free to drop it. But always leave those doors open as potential explorations so you can pull them in to the way that you work. In that way, you'll fall deeper in love with your practice and your style will flourish in a very interesting way if you leave those doors open. So that is lesson number 3. Lesson number 4 is to question your expectations. So this is kind of related to number 3, but I do think that number 4 is more direct. Really sit down and ask yourself, what is it that you expect from your art? And what is it that you think makes for good art? I have a drawing exercise in my mindful drawing course where we do this very directly, but you can do this on your own. Just sit down, question what your expectations are. And I do think that the main thing that I got from this mentorship was that I had to express to someone else what my expectations were, what my vision for my art was, and that created a lot more clarity around what I want for my art, and it also made me realize that I had all these stories in my head that just weren't true and weren't helpful to my art practice. There were so many stories in my head about how the art should look that weren't serving me, and they weren't even true. Many of those stories, when I wrote them down, I was like, wait, why do I believe this? I don't actually believe this. These are just stories that I've absorbed through YouTube videos, through teachers, through, friends and family that they've just made comments about what they consider good art to be. And for some reason, I've just absorbed those opinions as if they're my own. And now I carry them around me, and I just carry these expectations in my head, and they go unquestioned. You want to sit down and question them so you can truly decide for yourself if those expectations and those stories apply to your art practice. And you really need to do that on your own. Now, I'm not saying that you need to abandon all expectations of your art, but you want to be deliberate and you want to be intentional about the stories that you carry with you, because those stories define everything that you do. All the art that you make is defined by the expectations that you carry with you. The stories that you carry with you into the art will define your art practice. So be very careful about how you carry them into your practice. Be careful about what those stories tell you. Be careful about the expectations that you have of yourself and your practice. One healthy expectation that you can develop and add to your practice is that you should love your art practice. This was also a big part of the mentorship, is focusing on joy, on love. And honestly, carrying that one expectation, I do think that everyone could apply that. You should try to make your practice full of joy, make it full of just excitement. And that might not be easy at first, right? It's not something that you can just jump to if you have developed the habit of just being very self-critical, of not loving your practice. It will take some time. Be forgiving with yourself, but try to develop an expectation that your art practice should be beautiful. It should be joyful, because that is very, very possible. And it's something that I focus a lot on this channel. And honestly, the mentorship kind of validated that belief, because I do think that loving your practice is the number one thing that we should aim for when drawing, especially if you're a hobbyist. This channel is mostly focused on hobbyists, and even if you're a professional artist, like, why not try to enjoy it? Why not find ways to fall in love with your art practice? You do not need to hate your art practice to become good at it. You can truly enjoy the entire practice. So that is one expectation, one story that I would recommend you carry into your own art practice. But obviously, yet again, your expectations are personal to you. So if that doesn't resonate with you, then feel free to not do that. But hey, I would recommend it. It will make your life easier. It will make this whole thing more fun. Lesson number 5 is to treat your art with importance. And when I mean importance, I mean on a personal level. We're talking about deep in your soul level importance, not just surface level importance. It's not about importance externally, I mean importance internally. So it can be tempting to just treat your art as if you're making pretty pictures, that there's an outcome that you want from your pictures, instead of it being about deep personal expression. And I do think that there's been many times in my art practice where I've kind of shunned the deeper parts of things, where I've kind of pretended as if all I wanted was to make pretty pictures. I just want to draw pretty flowers and characters, and it's all just fun and surface level. But the reality is that there's this deeper experience that I think almost all creatives crave. And I do think that that is fully available in the art practice if you're willing to open your heart to it. And in this mentorship, this is something we focus on quite heavily, where it's the art can be anything you want. Therefore, you might as well treat it with the utmost importance, especially on those deeper levels. Because I do think that if you are creative, if you are watching this, there's a part of you that craves for those deeper experiences, but it can be difficult to truly treat your art with that level of importance, because that is intimidating. It is intimidating to say that, like, hey, I'm trying to express my soul on the paper. That can be hard to say out loud. It'd be hard to treat it with that importance, because that's a little bit scary. It puts you in a vulnerable position, and it could be tempting to just treat it with a surface level approach. I would actually urge you to also write down what you want out of your art and just admit to yourself that you want to achieve these deeper levels. Now, if that doesn't resonate with you right now, then obviously you don't have to approach your art that way. But I have found that the more I speak to art students, the more I delve into my own art practice, I realize that that is just a huge part of what I want from art, and I can't imagine not wanting it. I might be scared at times to approach my art in that way, but it's honestly just a huge part of the creative spirit. The more I tap into that creative energy, the more I want those deeper levels. So 10 out of 10 would recommend writing out what it is exactly you want out of your art. Like, if you want to express your heart, you want to express your soul, write it down so you see it, and then also treat it with that level of importance. Treat your art practice with the importance that it deserves, because your creative energy deserves it. The creative sides of your personality deserves the space to truly try to express itself. Lesson number 6 is that I need to give myself more credit. So I struggle quite a bit with the inner critic. I'm just like you guys. The reason why I talk a lot about expectations and the inner critic, perfectionism, all these things is because I struggle with it myself. And in that bucket of issues, I also don't give myself positive reinforcement. So there's many times where I do drawing that I actually like, and instead of like savoring that experience, I will just move on to the next drawing and be scared that the next drawing won't be as good, right? So instead of actually taking in the good that I do, I focus so heavily on the negative. And this is a pattern I've been trying to work on in all aspects of my life, where I'm just trying to spend more time focused on the good things that I actually do so that I can give myself that positive reinforcement that will make everything much easier. And over the past 2 months, drawing has become way easier, way more fun, because I've shrunk down those inner critic voices. Those critical voices just aren't as loud. Those negative voices aren't as loud, at least on a regular basis. There are definitely days where things get a little bit ugly. Those voices get a little bit too loud. But on a regular basis, I spend the time to actually give myself the positive reinforcement that I crave and actually like pat myself on the back and try to fully feel the joy of making a drawing that feels good to me. Now, this doesn't mean that I think my drawings are perfect or anything. It doesn't mean that like my art is like amazing. That is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the fact that I feel good about the art that I'm making because I'm being honest in it. And that is all it takes. The drawings can have many, many flaws in them, but you can still give yourself the positive reinforcement of the fact that you are pursuing something you care about. You are doing something that is valuable to you. And that is something that I'm trying to teach myself, where it has become so much more important to me to spend the time to actually feel those positive feelings, because it makes everything easier. And I'm kind of done just being so critical of myself. I'm tired of always feeling poorly about all the things that I do. It's become too exhausting, and I'm just done with it. So now I'm deciding that, hey, I'm just gonna have fun. I want to enjoy my life. I want to enjoy the art practice. I'm going to do whatever it takes to transform these habits into a positive experience. So I'm spending quite a bit of energy on that, and the mentorship helped a ton with that. I really externalizing this and talking about it with other artists made it way easier to realize that, like, hey, actually, this is what I believe. I believe that we should feel good during the art practice. We should feel good about the drawings that we make, even if there's plenty of flaws in them. We should still feel the pride of having the courage to express ourselves and explore this medium. So that's been lesson number 6. I just need to give myself more credit. I highly recommend that this is something that you add to your art practice. It's just like, give yourself a pat on the back. Even if you do a poor drawing, if the next drawing you do is not great, just be like, well, I made a drawing, I spent the time, and that is worth being proud of, especially if you are in a place where you've been drawing for a while. The younger version of you would definitely be proud of where you're at right now, even if it's not meeting your external goals. Maybe your art practice isn't where you were hoping it would be by this age. That doesn't matter. You're still making progress. You're still taking the time to do this beautiful thing. So give yourself credit, because that will make everything better. Lesson number 7 is to invest in education. This mentorship was amazing. Honestly, it was so good, way better than I expected. I could not have anticipated how valuable this would have become for me. Like, these past 2 months have just been mind-blowing. I keep saying that in this because it really was. It really transformed everything, and it made me realize that it's worth investing in education, even when I feel like I can teach myself everything myself. Like, I didn't really feel like I needed a mentor. But through this experience, I'm realizing that, like, actually having someone really experienced just nod along when you say things is tremendously valuable. So I want to invest more in my own education, and I think that's a big lesson. I also want to apply that in other aspects of my life, where if I can hire coaches for different things, that is tremendously valuable, just because the social reinforcement of these ideas makes them stick so much more than just you sitting alone with your thoughts. So that's been a huge eye-opener for me, and I'm super happy that I feel this way, because I haven't spent this amount of money on art education in a while, and it was a beautiful experience. So definitely will be investing more in education moving forwards. Lesson number 8 is to be more open to other creatives. So during university and art school and high school, I didn't have the best experience with other artists. So I think that over the past 10 years or so, I have kind of like stepped away from art friends, and I just replaced them with dance friends, because I do dance as a hobby. And this experience, this mentorship, a big part of it was the social component, where there are other artists in the mentorship that I get to talk to and interact with. And I realized that I've been hiding myself from other artists because I do feel insecure about how good my art is. I feel like my art should be a lot better. So I've kind of been hiding myself from these art friendships that could really help me grow. And through this mentorship, I have learned that these insecurities are just in my head. These are in me, and they're not a reflection of what the external world is actually like. My assumption was the other artists would not treat me as an equal because my art isn't technically amazing. And now that I'm saying that out loud, that sounds ridiculous, because obviously people are just looking for friendship. People are just looking for deeper connections. People are not really judging you that harshly based on your art, especially other artists, because they know how hard it is to make art. So I've really held back on art friendships. And this mentorship is opening my eyes to the fact that I need to just let go of some of these insecurities, some of these unhealthy stories that I have of what other creatives are like. I just need to open myself to it. I find myself very tempted to just stick to my art students because I know that they approve of my teachings. That's the only reason why they come to me, right? There's almost this layer of pre-approval to who I am, and I just need to stop leaning on that so heavily and open myself up to other professional artists and develop those deeper connections, because I do think that they will make me a way better art teacher, and also just good vibes. It makes me feel good. It feels nice to have other artists be like, hey, that's cool, I like what you're doing. That feels really validating. So that's lesson number 8. Just be more open to other creatives. And I do recommend that if you are in a place where you are looking for art friends, to try to find them online, try to find them in person, because it can be tremendously valuable for your art practice, especially if you do have the freedom and time to develop those connections. Lesson number 9 is to surrender to the muse. So this is a lesson that I'm learning over and over again, is that you're not in control, just surrender. The more I surrender, the more I give up control of my art, the more beautiful it becomes. All the drawings that I do now, I'm just surrendering all my control over to the muse. I'm using this intuitive drawing approach where things just flow naturally in a way that it is so much easier than trying to control everything. This is something that I've been learning over the past couple of years, but this past months, I've just been really leaning into it. And the drawing you're looking at right now, this was done using this process where I'm completely surrendering and I'm just going with the image and trusting the entire process instead of trying to control every step and trying to intellectually think through every potential drawing. I'm just letting go of all that and just deciding hey, I'm having this gut inclination. I'm just going to follow this thread. I'm just going to pull on this thread and just follow it and see where it goes. And just surrendering all that control is making the process so much more fun. It feels like an adventure. It feels like an adventure now. And I'm so happy I've gotten to here, because for 10 years, I was struggling so much to really feel that level of joy. And now over the past couple of years, I've really developed it. And the past 2 months really solidified that in my bones, where I'm like, oh yes, surrendering to the muse is the way to make the drawings that I want to make. All my favorite drawings all come from the same energy, this intuitive drawing, just flowing with nature. It's so satisfying and it makes me feel so good. So I'm definitely going to be doing a lot more of that. And that's ultimately the one thing that I really want to teach more students, is that there is that technical approach where you are being more intellectual, and for some people that is right for them, the technical approach. But I think for a lot of us creatives who want that deeper expression, intuitive drawing is the way to go, and the way to do it is to surrender to the muse, listen to those smaller inclinations, and just have developed this beautiful art practice. So if you want my 12 years of drawing experience for free, make sure to check out the mailing list below, where I'll be sending you short reads, short lessons that all come from my 12 years of drawing experience, my personal drawing experience, and also my 6 years of teaching beginner artists. And whenever you are ready, I will see you in my mindful drawing course, where we will do these intuitive drawing and really focus on the personal expression side of art. I will teach you some basic shape language stuff, then we'll go over intuitive drawing, then we'll go through all of these expression exercises that are tons of fun. And on top of that, we'll also grapple with our expectations and the inner critic. We're going to go directly at it and really try to resolve some of those expectations. So if that is interesting to you, I'll see you over in the course, and I'll also see you in the next video. Love you, appreciate you. Bye.